he's been really busy. I've just been hanging out, baking bread, enjoying sitting by the fireplace. As you saw, if you're in our Next Generation Gym Owners, Cheer Gym Owners Facebook group.
Oh no!
As you saw, if you are in our, hello. Okay. Only for gym owners, the Cheer Gym Owners group. Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of Fireside Chat with the Johnstons. I'm Danielle, and I will be here today as your single host. Because Justin is doing tons of work right now. He's super excited. I can hear him over in the next room. Hopefully you can't. But he is talking to some gym owners, and he's been on the phone all morning with gym owners who are ready to start achieving their goals in 2025. He's been having fun getting to know them and letting them know what Next Gen can do to help them. So if you are a first-time listener to the Fireside Chat podcast, my name is Danielle. I'm one of the owners of Next Generation Gym Owners. We help gym owners in the all-star cheer and gymnastics industry to grow their gyms, become more profitable, and earn their freedom so they can enjoy owning a gym. On top of that, I am one of the owners of Twister Sports in Warrensburg, Missouri. And Justin and I have owned over the last, 10 years. We've owned 8 different businesses, maybe 9. And so we bring to you every week our business experience, both in the all-star industry and outside of it. We talk to you a little bit about what it's like to own your gym with your spouse. Today, I am excited to get into a topic that I'm very passionate about, which is parent education. So I would be remiss if I didn't start this episode the way we start every episode of Fireside Chat with the Johnstons, which is by telling you my good news for the week.
Gentlemen, I've got good news and bad news.
So last night I was able to just kind of sit and relax. I did not coach. I actually finished Wednesday coaching, and I am not done, or I'm not going to be coaching for 2 weeks. We're kind of on holiday break. My gym does not close over holiday break. In fact, we do winter skills clinics and we do some camps. We have our childcare program, which probably for another day, but started out in 2020 as a summer camp, evolved into before and after school care. And now we do snow day care, half day care, school out days. Basically, we have a childcare license to do all of that, which is actually a pretty fantastic thing for a cheer gym because when the economy ebbs and flows, childcare does not. People always need childcare. So back to my good news. I was able to sit in front of my fireplace enjoying the Christmas trees and the Christmas lights last night. I sat and did some of our excursions for our upcoming trip over spring break. We are going on a cruise, a 9-day cruise, visiting a whole bunch of islands. Like, guys, that's where I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be somewhere in the Caribbean. My foreign exchange students, we have had 5. All of them were European, except one from Brazil who completely appreciated the color of the Caribbean. The other 5 are always totally stunned at how beautiful it is because they're used to the Mediterranean or the Aegean Sea. And when they see the Caribbean for the first time, they're like mouths drop and they're like in awe. So it is something I'm very passionate about, is making sure I get to go to the Caribbean and experience that at least once a year, because that is someday hopefully going to be my home. In the meantime, I really enjoyed that, and now I am looking forward to a couple of weeks off. We've got a kid who is in the Air Force, and he's coming home on leave next week. He will be here for a couple of weeks. It's going to be fun to have our whole family together again before our next child actually heads off to boot camp as well. So we're excited. All right, you guys, so let's go ahead and get into today's episode titled, Why Educating All-Star Parents is the Key to Your Success. Now, I'm going to put this caveat on here. I think there is value in educating all parents, including your recreational parents, on the things that make their children successful. I actually think there's value in educating your community on All-Star and the benefits of it. But for today's purpose, I'm going to talk specifically about educating your All-Star parents. So I put this out to my staff and I said, I'm going to talk about this on Fireside Chat. remind me of a couple of times because I could only think of one or two, but like I always know that you can tell when a parent doesn't know cheer by some of the questions that they ask. And I'm not making fun of parents here. I will tell you the reasons why I think this occurs. But of course, there were some funny things. And these are things that when parents end up, becoming all-star parents and doing it for 4, 5, 10 years, which some of them have, they end up looking back and kind of laughing about. So some of the things that my staff was saying, one of them said she had a parent ask her once, "What do you mean we have to be there next Saturday? I thought only elite athletes competed." So you probably kind of raised your eyebrows like I did. Of course, we have an all-star packet. Of course, we do our all-star 101. Of course. However, it's a good reminder to us that not all parents are reading the information. Their kids are excited, the parents are excited, and they're just signing them up. And I'm all about a yes man, but we thought that was kind of a funny one that we've heard that kind of made us say, oh gosh, we really need to make sure that we communicate with every parent before this upcoming competition. At least those novice and prep parents that are maybe a little bit newer to this sport. We have had parents before say, in fact, this was a couple years ago, I coached a junior novice team. And I had a parent say on the phone to me as she was signing her daughter up, well, my daughter is very small. She's likely going to be a flyer. And this is kind of funny because a couple of my coaches and my front desk staff said that they've heard this comment over the years. But the part that kind of made me laugh was that when it came down to it, that 12-year-old on a junior novice team ended up back spotting. She was quite tall. I would say she's almost as tall as me. Small in, she was petite, but definitely was a back spot. And so it kind of just goes to show that maybe she'll be a flyer in middle school or high school cheer. But her mom maybe wasn't familiar with what a junior novice team half year might look like, where you're specifically creating this age division to take a wide range of athletes. I'm going to give one that an athlete gave. I have a girl on my junior prep team this year. She's super sweet, super funny, but she was a gymnast prior to this. And so she does have a standing tuck. She's young though. She's never stunted. She has cleanish tumbling. We're working on cleaning it and just helping her understand cheerleading. And so you might be asking, like, why would you put someone with a standing tuck on a junior prep team? You're sandbagging. No, absolutely not. She wasn't ready for elite, mentally or commitment wise or travel wise or anything like that. And in the first year of cheer, very rare that I would put anybody on an elite team. So trust me, my junior prep team, though they've done very well this season, they are not sandbagged in any way. But this sweet little girl said to me on one of our first practices, "I have a standing tuck. Can I do it in the routine?" And I was like, no. You cannot, probably for like 3 or 4 years. You probably will not be able to. And so she had a hard time understanding that. And I had to explain it. But it brought forth the concept that like people just don't know all-star cheerleading. Like they might be watching level 3 and 4 teams thinking that's entry level because they have no idea. Or they might be watching level 2 teams or gosh, some of these like junior and senior level 1 teams that are phenomenal. And they're thinking, oh, my kid is just not ready for that. Right. And so it shows us that these parents and a lot of times the athletes just don't know cheerleading. How about some of these? And where you may have giggled at the first couple, I don't know if you're going to giggle at some of these. But I've been told these or asked these questions by parents, and maybe you have too as a gym owner. How about she's going to take the season off to work on her tumbling? That one's a little bit gut-wrenching, right? Because a lot of times it's a talented athlete that maybe just didn't get to the skill level they wanted to, or maybe they had really big goals that just for whatever reason did not get achieved, and they think that coming out of cheerleading will make them better at cheerleading. It's always interesting when that happens, right? How about she can't put weight on her ankle right now because she's injured. So she can't tumble, jump, or stunt, but can she still be in the routine and compete next weekend? Now, I'm not going to tell you I've never said yes to this. If you're a tiny novice athlete or maybe just on a novice team in general where we don't have to have, so many people tumbling and I've got lots of options, I can probably work with that just so that you can get to experience one of your 2 competitions for the whole season. However, This was an elite athlete. And so we already had a team of, I think, 14 that year. It doesn't work. It doesn't work if you can't stunt, tumble, or jump. There's not a whole lot that you can do at that point that I can keep you safe without even putting you, as a front spot. How about, can someone just fill in for her? She's not feeling well this week, or we're going to be on vacation that weekend. Can someone just fill in? This was one that one of my coaches sent to me, and I thought it was actually really interesting because my gym has evolved a lot over the years. My first couple seasons, I think the most all-star kids I ever had was 35. And the concept that somebody would just be able to fill in was like, it blew my mind. Like, I'll never have enough kids to just have a fill in. And over the years, what happened was I got more athletes, I got more teams. I had kids who would maybe hit freshman or sophomore year and decided they didn't want to continue cheering. They wanted to, go get jobs or focus on high school sports. One in particular, I actually coach with her now, and now she's a college cheerleader. She took a couple years off because she wanted to focus on track. She thought she would maybe be doing track in college. And so she wanted to train for that year round. Well, it turned out that I ended up having people that I could call back in and say, hey, so-and-so broke her finger and we're headed to this competition. Can you come fill in? And so I think it became kind of a thought in my gym that if she can't be here, we can probably just get a fill-in for her. And what that taught me was parents didn't understand that we're setting the team back multiple practices by having to have even the most qualified fill-in, right? Even the most talented athlete is going to have to invest time into learning that routine. And you can't always learn that outside of a team practice. So the other, 14 or 15 athletes are kind of just standing there while that one person is learning their spots. They're learning, the grips, they're learning the transitions, stuff like that. So it showed me that though it is really cool that I now am at a stage where I feel like I often have fill-ins, it trained my parents to kind of believe that was like, okay, if she's not here, they'll just get a fill-in for her for practice for a couple of weeks. Now, I had a Next Gen Academy member yesterday say something really thought-provoking for me. She said, I'm glad I'm in the OGs because I remember the days when you guys told us about all the things that were so hard for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I talk about that still today, but maybe I don't talk about it enough. Like, guys, yes, without Justin, I'm on a tangent. You're right. If you are one of those small gyms and you are just struggling, you're like, I cannot even imagine having fill-ins for my team or having a girl with a standing tuck that I'm not going to put on an elite team. If you remember those days, no, I've totally been there. I've been there to the point where I didn't have a single athlete to fill in, and we just had to readjust the routine every time someone quit or every time, somebody was throwing up on competition day. I've been, in a situation where I'm readjusting routines and warm-ups because somebody didn't show up. So I've been there in all of those situations. Now, if you can grow your gym and you can use a lot of the methods that we teach in Next Gen to grow your program the way I did from 28 all-star kids, I think my second or third season, to by season number 10, sounds like that's a long time, but it's really not, to 150 all-star athletes, you can be in the position I was in, I think it was last year or the year before, where we competed in Dallas and my fill-in got sick. I had a girl who broke her finger, so we called in a fill-in from another team. She filled in, learned the whole routine. That day showed up with 104 fever, and her mom's like, I think we need to take her to urgent care. And I was like, I think you're right. And then we're in the hallway teaching another fill-in that routine, right? It didn't go well on the mat, but it wasn't the fill-in. It was the rest of the team that stressed, and I do not blame them. Anyway, like I said, I'm on a tangent without Justin here to hold me back. This is going to be a 7-hour podcast. But if you've ever experienced those things, then you're probably sitting back thinking, oh my gosh, this parent does not understand cheer, or this athlete does not understand cheer. What about those gyms like mine who do practices that are focused on stunting? So my athletes have a team practice, they have a tumbling class, and then they have a stunt practice. Now that's not typically 3 practices a week. Most of the time they have their team practice, their stunt practice and their tumbling class all paired into one. And so my mini level 1 elite team, this is only elite kids, my mini level 1 elite team, I basically have them for 2 hours, and within those 2 hours, we stunt and we tumble. And sometimes I throw in jumps just like a normal practice. Some of my other teams, like my youth level 1, they were just kind of all over the place with tumbling. Like some were working handsprings, some didn't have a back bend yet. They had a broader range of skills. And so we didn't do a team tumbling for them. So they do a stunt practice and then a separate tumbling class that's better fitted toward their skills. Anyway, so our stunt practice, sometimes you're going to say, okay, I'm going to work pyramid today. Well, maybe you have 1 or 2 kids who aren't in pyramid and they tumble in the front during pyramid, or they're like a front spot for 2 8 counts of pyramid, and then they kind of move to the back or they move to their next position, getting ready for dance. Well, it's not uncommon every couple of seasons when, somebody is new to an elite team that the mom says, well, does she even need to be here for this stunt practice? Like, it's almost like they don't quite understand why we still want the whole team there, even if some athletes are not in every one of the stunts. And I get it. Like, as a parent, I understand the burden of, wouldn't it be nice to just have a night off if you're not going to use my kid anyway? But guys, how often do you end up having to switch those stunt groups around because someone quits, someone was sick, someone has a shoulder injury, or they jammed their finger or something, and you have to switch them around. And thank goodness you have those kids that have been there and kind of already know the counts and they know what's supposed to happen in pyramid. So if you've ever experienced those things that I talked about, either the silly, funny ones about standing tucks at junior level 1 prep, or the ones about she's going to take the season off to focus on tumbling, then you probably have parent education that needs to happen in your gym. And if you're listening to this thinking, well, why are you talking about this? Obviously, you have parent education that needs to happen in your gym. You're absolutely right. Every year, I get a new batch of novice parents. I get some coming from rec tumbling or competitive tumbling over to our prep program. And every so often, I get a couple of athletes that will move from competitive tumbling straight over into elite because they've already, got the strong tumbling skills. We know their strength. We know their work ethic, and they kind of already understand cheer. But it doesn't defeat the fact that you still sometimes get parents who just don't quite get it. So it's super important that your parents do understand all-star cheerleading. You have to remember, and if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably on the upper end of your knowledge in cheerleading, because sometimes people don't find these resources until a little bit later into their journey. Well, you might be at the 12th grade level or even the collegiate level, or my gosh, you're like a professor of cheerleading in a metaphorical term. But these parents are coming in and they're at kindergarten or first grade level. They might know what a back handspring is or a cartwheel, or, those parents who call it a backflip. They may know those things. Maybe they even cheered in middle school or high school, and so they know what a prep is. My gosh, they probably call it an elevator, or, a smush, a squish. My choreographer said some people call it a rooster. I don't know. And so they may know some of these terms, but they don't totally understand all-star cheerleading. And it's not a sport that you learn in school. If you didn't go to an all-star gym, you don't know all-star cheerleading. And, you don't go in PE class like you learn to play basketball, and you play basketball and you scrimmage and stuff like that. You just don't do that in school. And so we have to teach them the basics right from the beginning. And we can't assume that just because we're teaching their kids the basics, that the parents are understanding it and that they know as well. And truly, the parents have a different role. I might be teaching an athlete why it's important that she doesn't bend her knee in a back walkover, but that doesn't mean that the athlete is going to properly convey it to the parent. Because for the athlete, we're focused more on the how. How do you do these things? And I explain the why, but for the mom, 10 times more important that I'm explaining why does she need to practice these with a straight knee at home? Because when she comes to practice, whatever her muscle memory is in her body is what she is going to show us out on the mat. You have to teach people how to be a good cheer parent. It's not just about scoring and cheer makeup. A lot of times you're teaching them practice etiquette. If I'm going to be 5 minutes late, I have to call. If my daughter is sick, I have to call before practice starts, or before the front desk calls me or the director calls me. It's important that you are communicating these things, your policies. And I don't just mean payment policies or don't pick your kids up late, but, things like, hey, when your kids are out on the floor, if you see them doing something and maybe I missed it. Know this. A lot of times I did see that they were maybe doing the wrong motion here or there, but like we had bigger fish to fry in that moment, right? I tell parents this quite a bit. Don't hesitate to tell me after practice if you saw something that she was doing wrong, because I understand you're focused on one athlete out on the floor. I have 15 to 20 athletes that I'm looking at. Maybe I did miss it. Don't tell me in that moment, because we're probably, pretty heavily focused on something and we don't want to interrupt a full practice. But also, I'm totally okay if you tell me afterwards and I can let you know, oh yeah, I did see that, but here's why I didn't fix it yet. Or, no, I didn't see that. I will definitely watch for that next time. Thank you. We don't have to be combative with parents about that stuff. We can know that if a parent is telling you, hey, did you miss this? It's 100% because they don't want their child to be the weak link on the team. I had a parent come to me this past summer and he made the comment, he's like, hey, does my daughter need some private lessons on stuff? Because I'm kind of noticing she looks like the weak link out there and I don't want to go to competition and my daughter ruins it for the whole team. And I just thought, sometimes dads are very direct and they're not emotional about it. And I loved the factual approach. Like the former military member inside of me was like, thank God, I would love it if all parents talked to me like this. But it really goes to show you that parents just want their kids to be able to hold their own for the team. They want them to be able to have all the skills, maybe be featured. I do think there's a large portion of parents that see how hard their kids work and they think, man, if she were featured in the front of jumps, that would show how hard she's worked and it would, reward her for that hard work. So it's important that we educate parents so that we can be on the same team as them. When we do this, it turns into a team effort. It becomes the athlete, the mom or dad, and the coach working together to help the athlete accomplish something. And know that sometimes those kids, especially in their middle school and high school years, might be defiant at certain times, right? And they're difficult. And so if you have that united front, then when the athlete, is difficult for some reason, the parent and the coach can work together to help get through to that athlete. I've had, mostly in middle school and high school kids, I've had moments where they're just running out of energy early. They're getting really sick all the time. And what it comes back to, I am not a doctor, but what it comes back to a lot of times is they're not fueling their bodies throughout the day. They're like, I don't know if your kids eat Bosco sticks, but I see it on my lunch account for my daughter all the time. Like, Addie, what did you eat for lunch? I had a Bosco stick. Okay, great. You had cheese and bread. That's not enough because you work out, a lot of hours a day. And if you look at it, some of these kids, my 14-year-old, for example, she's spending an hour and a half at ROTC during high school, which means she's probably PTing for 45 minutes of that, doing PT physical training. So pull-ups, push-ups, running, stuff like that. She then goes to a soccer practice right after school for an hour, which is weightlifting and cardio in the winter. She then comes to the gym and she'll put in another 2-hour practice. So this kid is working out up to 4 hours a day, and sometimes she ate a Bosco stick, right? So when situations like that happen, if the parents feel that you are credible and you're already a team, like the parent and the coach are a team together, then you can pull that united front forward and you can say, okay, we together are going to solve something. But you can't do that if you can't connect with the parent and build that credibility by educating them in the first place. Hey, I'm noticing that she is running out of gas real early in practice. She seems like she looks kind of flushed right now. I just noticed that, she looks really tired all the time right now. Can we talk to her together about fueling her body and making sure that she is making the right choices throughout the day, getting in enough food so that she has the energy for practice? Okay, so some of the things that you're going to find when your parents are not well educated is you're going to have misunderstandings about things around the gym. A parent who knows you and who knows that you know your stuff is going to be far less likely to come to you and say, well, my daughter said that you did this. Right? My daughter said that you told her XYZ. Parents are going to know that you have the maturity and the professionalism as a coach, that you have the knowledge and the credibility. I can tell you that if an athlete went to her parents on one of my teams and said, well, Coach Danielle said that I'm not going to be in tumbling next week now. Like, she pulled me out of tumbling. The parents in my gym would probably come to me and say, well, I know that's not the policy. I know that's not how you guys operate. So can you explain to me what happened? Right? And so they're already able to give you the benefit of the doubt because they know that you have the credibility to back it. So there's probably a reason why the athlete would have gotten pulled out. But secondly, I'm not going to pull an athlete out without giving lots of pre-warning, like, hey, we're not quite hitting that. I need you to be practicing. I need you here at open gym. I need you getting some private lessons. And by the way, mom, I'm letting you know everything I've just told your child. No athlete gets pulled out of tumbling or stunts in my gym without there being several weeks now, aside from an injury, without there being several weeks of it in advance. And, leading up to competition season, that would be months in advance of saying, hey, I'm recognizing that this is happening. Let's give her homework, see if she can get to the point where she can fulfill this position. If for whatever reason she can't, then we would need to pull her out. But guess what? Pulling somebody out does not always have to be permanent. It can be something where we're pulling them out, but then able to showcase that skill later in the routine, later in the season. A lot of times when your parents aren't educated, you're also finding that they have unrealistic expectations. Because of the number of hours a week we practice in my gym, even on elite teams, and I'll speak purely to elite, we practice 2.5 hours a week on elite teams plus a 1 hour tumbling class. So you're talking 3.5 hours. If that is all you do and you don't condition and you don't tumble outside of that and you don't do a lot of practice at home, it would probably be pretty rare for you to move up one level per season. So you're probably not going to start on mini level 1 this year, move to youth level 2 next year, then a junior level 3, and then a senior level. It's probably not going to happen. Because I've educated our parents that if your child really is passionate about moving up those levels, we have the opportunities, but here's what you would have to do to get there. And I'm very clear on what that path needs to look like and that it's different for every athlete. I have a girl who started competitive cheerleading with us in 2020. I did not know what my season was going to look like because, well, did any of us? And so she was on an elite team that year. She was on a youth level 1 elite team. She had very little tumbling. And I should also say she was 11. 5 years later now, because of the mid-season that we're in, she is almost doing her round-off handspring tuck. She has her standing 3. She's working aerials and she's pretty close to them. She can do a punch front. So the pace in which that athlete grew might be very different. In fact, it is very different than her little sister, who is a mini right now, who has multiple handsprings and is working on perfecting those, but also had no skills 4 years ago. So educating parents like this is super valuable because it prevents parents from having unrealistic expectations season over season. Okay, guys, well, thank you for joining me this week. This was part 1 because the Johnstons always do part 1 and part 2, I guess, so that you're not here with us for 7 hours. This is part 1 of why educating all-star parents is the key to success. Next week, I am going to talk to you about the strategies for educating cheer parents, how we do that in my gym, and what the result you can expect when you see an educated parent, and how you can recognize educated parents versus those who maybe have been around your gym a little while and still don't quite get it. So thank you for joining me on this week's episode, and I will see you on the next episode of Fireside Chat with the Johnstons.